Imagine carrying the weight of your future in your own hands, knowing that it depends on one single thing: staying focused. Douglas, an ordinary student, was about to face this monumental challenge. His days were a roller coaster of emotions, where distractions seemed to lurk around every corner, ready to pull him off the path to his dreams. He knew that if he gave in, everything he dreamed of could crumble. But instead of succumbing to the overwhelming pressure, Douglas made a decision that would change everything. He committed to 30 days of unwavering dedication, 30 days of fighting against his own limitations. The first days were a brutal battle: fatigue, doubt, the urge to give up. But Douglas rose, stronger, more determined. With each passing day, the challenges increased, and the temptation to quit whispered in his ear. But he knew that if he stayed focused, he could transform his life. And so, his journey of 30 days began, which would not only push him to the limit, but also make him discover a strength he didn't even know he possessed. And you, are you ready to face your greatest challenges and discover how far you can go? The journey begins now. The days passed, and what once seemed like an impossible effort began to turn into a routine. But don't be mistaken, each morning was still a battle. The alarm clock would ring, and Douglas would feel the weight of the day ahead of him. The bed seemed more comfortable, the distractions more tempting, but he knew he couldn't give in. Every wasted minute was a lost opportunity, and every time he chose to get up and face the day, he was taking a step toward his dreams. Douglas was no different from any other student. He had his weaknesses, his doubts. But with each challenge, he found a new way to overcome himself. He began to understand that the real enemy wasn't fatigue or distractions. It was the inner voice that said he wasn't capable. And this voice, he learned to silence with effort, with discipline, with every small victory he accumulated along the way. At the end of each day, he reviewed his accomplishments. They weren't great feats. They were the small victories that kept him on the right path. The extra chapter he read, the problem he solved, the difficult concept that finally made sense. These moments were proof that he was making progress, and this sense of advancement, no matter how small, fueled him. But the journey was far from easy. The physical fatigue began to accumulate, the mental pressure intensified, and Douglas knew that the greatest challenges were yet to come. He began to question whether he could maintain this pace for 30 entire days. Doubts haunted him, but he had promised himself he would not give up, that he would keep going, one day at a time. Douglas was transforming, and he could feel it. What once seemed like an unbearable burden was now starting to shape him, to strengthen his resolve. He was becoming someone different, someone stronger, more resilient, and with each new day he was closer to discovering what he was truly capable of achieving. When the 15th day arrived, Douglas was no longer the same. He had overcome the initial barriers, but now he was in the eye of the storm. It was as if the world around him was testing his resolve with even more intensity. Unexpected tests arose, urgent commitments appeared, and the pressure only increased. But instead of giving in, Douglas did something that many would consider madness. He doubled down on his efforts. He understood that to achieve something extraordinary, he needed to go beyond the ordinary. The hours that were once spent on distractions now became opportunities to advance toward his goals. He began to use every moment, every break, every second as a chance to improve, to learn, to grow. The shortcuts others sought, he ignored. He was building something stronger than just achieving a goal. He was building himself. During these days, Douglas faced his greatest demons. The doubt became more and more insistent. Is it worth it? Can I do it? But he learned to face these thoughts head-on. Instead of avoiding them, he confronted them, analyzed them, and then turned them into fuel to keep going. He knew that this internal battle was the hardest, but it was also the most important. And it was during this phase that he discovered something fundamental, the power of consistency. It didn't matter how tired he was. It didn't matter how much the world tried to distract him. Every day that he remained faithful to his journey, he grew stronger. And this strength wasn't just physical or mental. It was a strength of character, of conviction, of someone determined not just to reach a goal, but to transform in the process. On the 20th day, something incredible happened. Douglas realized that he was no longer just surviving the journey. He was beginning to thrive. The tasks that once seemed impossible now became challenging, but not insurmountable. He was becoming more agile, more confident, more assured that every step was bringing him closer to what he had always dreamed of. Douglas was no longer just fighting for 30 days. He was building a new future, a future where he was the master of his destiny. And this destiny was not just a distant idea. It was materializing with every effort, every decision, every moment of overcoming. When Douglas reached the 25th day, something unexpected happened. He was in the middle of a quiet night, surrounded by books and notes, when a deep doubt arose in his mind. He looked up at the ceiling, lost in thought, and asked himself out loud, "Why am I doing this? Is it really worth it?" It was a moment of vulnerability, where all certainties began to crumble. He knew he needed an answer, so he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. In his mind, the words of his father echoed, who once told him, "Son, what you achieve with effort is what you value most in life." Remembering this, Douglas felt a new flame ignite within him. He answered himself in a low but firm voice, "Yes, it's worth it, because it's not just about winning. It's about becoming the person I need to be to achieve my dreams." With this renewed determination, Douglas returned to work. But this time, something was different. Every word he read, every problem he solved, seemed clearer, more accessible. It was as if he had finally found the rhythm, the perfect balance between effort and reward. He realized that during this journey, he wasn't just acquiring knowledge. He was building an indestructible mindset, a mindset that would take him not just to victory, but far beyond. The next day, during a moment of pause, Douglas looked at himself in the mirror and smiled. "I am really changing," he said, almost in disbelief. And there, as he stared at his own reflection, an idea occurred to him. He turned to the audience, imagining them there with him, and asked, "And you? When was the last time you looked in the mirror and saw someone who is really changing? Do you feel like you're on the right path? Answer in the comments. I want to know what you're going through." Douglas realized that this journey wasn't just about him. It was about everyone who had faced similar challenges, about everyone who had ever wondered if it was worth continuing. And at that moment, he decided that by sharing his story, he might help others find their own answers to become the people they need to be. The last days lay ahead, and Douglas knew the true test was yet to come. But now, he wasn't just ready. He was eager to face it, knowing that every second counted, that every decision mattered. And, most importantly, he was prepared to face the greatest challenge of all, the version of himself he was destined to become. On the 28th day, Douglas woke up with a strange feeling. It wasn't fatigue nor doubt, but a deep calm, almost like the stillness before a storm. He knew the end of the journey was near, but curiously, he didn't feel relief. Instead, he felt an even greater responsibility. Every choice, every action in these last days could define the success or failure of everything he had built. That day, while reviewing his notes, Douglas found himself reflecting on something that had always bothered him: the fear of failure. He remembered all the times insecurity had tried to steer him off course, the nights he wondered if he was strong enough to continue. But then he realized He was no longer the same Douglas of 30 days ago. He had grown, changed, strengthened. The fear that once paralyzed him now seemed smaller, almost insignificant. But the true revelation came that afternoon during a walk to clear his mind. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and red, when Douglas suddenly stopped and in a whisper said to himself, "It is not fear that defines me, it is the courage to face it." He realized that the journey wasn't just about reaching a goal, but about the transformation that happens in the process. It was about becoming someone who, even in the face of uncertainties, chooses to keep going. And it was at this moment that Douglas made a crucial decision. He promised that in the remaining 2 days, he would give everything he had. He would leave nothing behind. He would not settle for less than his best. No matter how difficult it was, he knew that these last 2 days would be the key to solidifying everything he had learned and achieved. He returned home with a new energy, an unshakable determination. He sat down again in front of his books, but this time with a clarity he had never experienced before. He was completely immersed, as if his entire being was in tune with his goals. Every word, every line seemed etched in his mind with impressive sharpness. It was as if, finally, he had unlocked his full potential. Douglas knew he was about to cross the finish line, but what he still didn't fully understand was that, in reality, the finish line was just the beginning of something much bigger. And you? Have you ever experienced that moment when everything seems to align, when you feel like you're about to achieve something great? If so, share your experience in the comments. Let's inspire each other. Then, on the 29th day, when Douglas was just one step away from completing his 30-day journey, something unexpected happened. It was a quiet morning, and he was in the middle of an intense review for the final exam that would seal his dedication when his phone rang. It was a call from the school, a serious voice on the other end of the line. There had been a mistake that could jeopardize everything he had done up to that point. The voice on the other end explained that due to a system error, the date of the final exam had been changed. And not to the next day, as Douglas expected, but to that afternoon. He had only a few hours to prepare. It was a devastating blow, a final, cruel, and unexpected test to see how well Douglas was truly prepared. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Douglas felt as if the ground was crumbling beneath his feet. All those days of meticulous preparation, all the sacrifice, now hung by a thread. He could despair, surrender to panic, let the pressure crush him. But in that moment of chaos, something inside Douglas ignited. He hung up the phone, closed his eyes for a brief second, and made a decision. No matter the change in plans, he would not give up. He had less time than he imagined, but he also had something that time couldn't take away, the confidence he had built over the past 29 days. Douglas grabbed his books, his notes, and dove into a frantic review. Every second counted. He felt the adrenaline coursing through his veins. But this time, it wasn't fear that drove him, but pure determination. The exam was no longer just an academic test. It was the final battle of a personal war he was determined to win. When he finally arrived at the classroom, minutes before the exam began, Douglas took a deep breath. He knew the situation was far from ideal, but at the same time, he felt more prepared than ever before. He looked around, saw his nervous classmates, but not him. He was calm, focused, almost as if the unexpected had only reinforced his resolve. And then, when the exam began, Douglas realized something surprising. All the answers were there, not just on the tip of his tongue, but engraved in his mind. He wrote confidently, almost without hesitation. Every question seemed a direct reflection of everything he had studied. It was as if all the effort of the past 29 days had concentrated in his mind at that exact moment. Douglas left the room exhausted but victorious. The exam that should have defeated him had become the ultimate symbol of his triumph. He had not only completed his 30-day journey, he concluded it with a twist that tested his true strength and resilience. And now, as he looked back, he knew he was ready for anything the future might bring. Douglas, an ordinary student, had begun his journey with a simple goal: to stay focused for 30 days. He knew that to achieve his dreams, he would need to overcome distractions, fatigue, and even his own fears. But what he didn't know was that this journey would lead him to discover something much greater, the inner strength that we all possess, but that few fully explore. Throughout these 30 days, Douglas faced challenges that seemed insurmountable, but with each obstacle, he became more resilient, more determined. And when the unexpected happened on the 29th day, he proved he was ready to face the unforeseen because he had built a solid foundation, a mindset that nothing could shake. In the end, it wasn't just the academic knowledge he acquired that made the difference, but the personal transformation that occurred along the way. Douglas didn't just complete his journey, he became the architect of his own destiny. The exam that should have been his greatest challenge became his greatest victory because he didn't give up, didn't give in to pressure, and discovered that true strength comes from within. And now, as he concludes this journey, Douglas knows he's ready to face any challenge life throws his way. He understood that success is not just about reaching a goal, but about who you become along the way. Douglas's journey is a powerful reminder that with focus, determination, and unwavering will, we are capable of overcoming any adversity. And you? What are you willing to do to achieve your dreams? What challenges are you ready to face and conquer? If Douglas's story inspired you, share in the comments how you plan to apply this lesson to your own life. If you like this story and want to continue receiving inspiration and motivation, don't forget to leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. Together, we can turn our challenges into opportunities and build the future we desire. Douglas' journey may have ended, but yours is just beginning. And remember, it all starts with a single step.